It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Hope everyone had a safe, healthy, happy 4th of July. Hope all your fingers, your toes, your belly, your nose, your head, hope everything in place. Hopefully you didn't do anything stupid, and you're okay today. That's what I'm hoping for. Here's the thing. Had an interesting weekend myself. Hot. Spent part of the day on Sunday reading in the house. Hot. And came across, a little bit. And look, I'm usually somebody, up on what happened today in labor history. After all, we do our little thing, labor history in 2. And yesterday I was reminded of the March of the Mill Children. And, and so I went and I started reading some of Mother Jones's autobiography. For those who don't know, the March of the Mill Children was organized by Mother Jones, Mary Harris, in Philadelphia, a march from Philadelphia to Oyster Bay, New York, where then President Teddy Roosevelt was vacationing at his home with Prince Peter, as I understand it. About 100 kids made the march all the way from Philly to New York. About 100 miles they marched, and all along the way, of course, getting publicity and trying to gather up some, hey, what's going on, so that the local press would cover stuff, because they would have to, because hey, I saw this big procession, what happened? Couldn't be ignored. And the idea to draw attention, they carried banners and signs. And look, when you see about 100 kids marching down the street, missing hands and fingers and eyes and all kinds of stuff, kind of raises attention. So it was Sunday was the 121st anniversary of the march. And so I started reading a little bit of Mother Jones' autobiography about the March of the Mill Children. And it's online, it's free. You can Google it. But I decided today I'm just going to read the opening of that bit, where she writes, in the spring of 1903, I went to Kensington, Pennsylvania, where 75,000 textile workers were on strike. She says, of this number, at least 10,000 were little children. The workers were striking for more pay and shorter hours. Every day, little children came to the union headquarters, some with their hands off, some with their thumbs missing, some with their fingers off at the knuckle. They were stooped little things, round-shouldered and skinny. Many of them were not over 10 years of age, although the state law prohibited working before they were 12. She says, look, the law was poorly enforced, and the mothers of these children often swore falsely as to their children's age. In a single block in Kensington, 14 women, mothers of 22 children under the age of 12, explained it was a question of starvation or perjury. The fathers had been killed or maimed in the mines. And we've talked about this before. The old company towns, when the husband gets killed, somebody's got to fill the spot, or mama's got to do some favors, or you got to get out. She writes, I asked the newspapermen, why didn't they publish the facts about child labor in Pennsylvania? They said they couldn't because the mill owners had stock in the papers. And she said, well, I've got stock in these little children, and I'll arrange a little publicity. And that she did 121 years ago. And look, her famous speech, the wail of the children, one of those things that we don't see enough of today, and we don't have a media structure that will even bring it up. And even though it was 121 years ago, the history of that march, the history of that should resonate profoundly with our present struggles for justice, for humanity, for human rights. The early 20th century, amidst the clang of machinery and the cries of exploited children, there was a fearless woman, Mother Jones, Mary Harris, who stood up as the beacon for hope of the oppressed. And look, in the shadows of the Industrial Revolution, she led this march against a horrid exploitation of children in factories and mines. And here we are, in this moment. There are states undoing child labor laws. But what I read about her, and as I was reading, this is a woman who had fiery determination. You didn't care if she got arrested. In fact, one of the famous quotes I remember from a speech she gave outside of Pittsburgh was, when the company sends in their spies, have them come to the front of the line so they can report my words accurately. But she had the courage to rally these young souls to demand an end to the inhumane conditions that they worked in. This is a pivotal moment in American history. This is a pivotal moment in the fight for labor rights. This is a pivotal moment in the fight for justice. And understand, while the strike at Kensington was lost, they didn't get the higher pay or the shorter hours. The state of Pennsylvania, the General Assembly, did pass a law banning children from working until their 14th birthday, with some enforcement. So again, you fast forward to today, present day, right now. We find ourselves facing the disheartening reality that there is a resurgence of attacks on child labor laws. Despite the hard-fought victories of the past, Mother Jones here, the rights and the protections of our most vulnerable, our children, are once again under attack. And why? Same reasons back then: cheap labor, exploitable labor, the greed and indifference of the past. Not much different than today. Now, here's the thing. I have people say, well, couldn't happen here. They're just loosening things a little bit. It could never go back. We're better than they were 121 years ago. And I don't know. I'm not there yet, because I got to tell you, it looks like we're reliving history. I have been getting a lot of email. The situation that we are in this country is dire, because one election, a lot of the things that we fought for, that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents fought, bled, and died for, will be on the line. And as I said, I've been getting slammed with angry emails. And in my mind, the argument that I've been making back is going, look, if you think Biden's capable of doing the job, if you want him to do the job and you think this is it, I fully understand. It's a valid argument. But if you're like me, who going, I trust Joe Biden, I believe wholeheartedly he's going to do what's in the best interest of the country, and I think that should be to step aside. Especially after what we saw on Thursday at the Thursday debate. That too is a valid argument. It's a valid discussion to have. Now, our media elites, they're behaving exactly how they're supposed to. Because much like the reason the newspaper people 121 years ago didn't talk about child labor, same today. It's about the profits. It's about the corporate interests. It's about them, not us. Do you really think the people who were, I would argue, yesterday's lunch money victims are going to be the ones to stand up for democracy today? They're not going to stand up to their bosses. They've got cushy gigs making millions of dollars. And I get the other thing. Well, why haven't you asked for Donald Trump to step aside? There's a bunch of reasons for that. Should Donald Trump step aside? Absolutely, without question. He should have resigned or stepped aside a long time ago. In the best interest of the country, he should step aside. But here's the thing. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about us. He doesn't care about this country. He cares about him. And the idea that somehow, if we just said enough, Donald, you got to go, that he would go, oh, okay. Now, here's the thing. I think Joe Biden is a good, decent, honest, thoughtful man. I also think that Democrats are not a bunch of goose-stepping morons who blindly follow dear leader. Understand, there is no world in which I see a Donald Trump or any of the Republicans in this moment doing the right thing. Now, I've been hammered by some of the red hat crowd for saying, well, you said you'd vote for him even if he was in a coma. This is true, because Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to this country, and I wholeheartly believe this. But I've said I'm all in favor of the policies. It's the team that the administration. It's everything that comes with Joe Biden. And again, my red hat crowd used to believe this, because after the embarrassment that was Helsinki, everyone was going, well, I don't really like Donald Trump. I don't think he's really that good, but I like his policies. And then you would ask, well, what policy is that, pray tell? And, well, didn't have an answer. I've got hundreds of answers to the things that I've agreed with this administration in writing the course of our country, of supporting workers by encouraging people to join and form unions, by investing in our infrastructure here at home, by investing in reshoring manufacturing. There's the talk about country first. There's the talk about America first that we hear from the right. And that's usually some kind of weird Eurocentric white nationalist rhetoric. What Joe Biden's talking about is really, truly country first, and ensuring that everyone here has an opportunity, regardless of your background, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your race or sex or any of that. Now, our corporate-controlled media needs this. They need the horse race. And I would argue that we as a country need this. And I do believe my position is where we should be going, and I'm fully anticipating the week of the Republican convention, you're going to see a move, because you're seeing big voices. A number of House Democrats have called on the president to step aside. A number of senators have come out. You've got Dan Pfeiffer, Obama's guy, saying that Biden doesn't seem to see the crisis, and you've got David Axelrod, again another Obama strategist, saying that Biden's headed towards a landslide defeat. All the voices in his circle are raising concerns. That's telling me that there's going to be a move. Now, I do get, he's out there doing rallies, and that's great. I think he has to. He has to promote the agenda, absolutely. But at some point, we're going to have to find out. Now, will that be the convention? We'll see. Here's the bottom line. I think it would be in the best interest of his legacy. I think it would be in the best interest of the country. And we'll see. But if he decides that he believes in his heart that he is the best person to not allow Donald Trump to get back in the White House, I will full force, full-throated, actively help him in any way I can. Because again, one, it's about the agenda. It's about the policies that they've moved and wanting to do what they've accomplished and more. And also, it's about keeping the other guy out. And there's a bunch of reasons why we need to keep this generation of Republicans out of power. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So a funny tweet I saw over the weekend. Marjorie Trainwreck Green tweeted out, the average age of the signers of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776 was 44 years old, but more than a dozen were 35 or younger. And then she points out that Thomas Jefferson was 33, John Hancock was 39, James Madison was 25, Alexander Hamilton was 21, James Monroe was 18, Aaron Burr was 20, Paul Revere was 41. And, you know, she goes on down this list. George Washington, all these names. Somebody going to tell her? Never mind. Never mind. Hamilton, Monroe, Burr, Paul Revere, George Washington, none of them signed the Declaration of Independence. But hey, you know, these are the people who want to destroy the Department of Education. These are the people who say, no, we don't need such a thing. Yeah. Also on the social medias, Donald Trump on his truth. Again, brilliant marketing to start everything that you're going to say that you believe is ridiculous, is nonsense, is propaganda, is a bold-faced lie. Starting off with it's on Truth Social is, you got to give them credit for really, understanding marketing. But Trump put out on his thing, and oddly enough, not in all caps, which tells me I don't know that he wrote it, but the former president wrote out, "I know nothing about Project 2025." Duh? He said, "I have no idea who's behind it." Really? I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them. And the weird thing is, well, one of his main advisors, Stephen Miller, is evidently all over it, but has come out and said, I've never done any work with them except on their YouTube channel. And again, this is that world where they do something, they get caught, they deny it, and then our media just lets it go. Because then and look, I'm guilty of this as well, because they lie about everything. This is a gang that I fear would lie when the truth would be better. That these kind of things are basically their MO. Now, understand, Project 2025 has finally been getting some attention. We've been talking about it for months now. The first week it came out, we were saying, bad. This is going to make, they're attempting to do what Jim Jordan and his crowd accuse the Democrats of. And that is actually weaponizing government, making patronage great again. Because understand, one of the things that Trump really, really whines about a lot is that the bureaucracy didn't let him steer the ship, immediately. You had to go through a process. And that's the point of our government, especially, some of these bureaucracies that are put into place so that you don't make wide swings from one ideological extreme to the other, that there's some consistency. What they want to be able to do is they want to bring in all political appointees. And are these people qualified? I would doubt it. They're yes people. They're going to do what they're told, whatever dear leader says. Because interestingly enough, because when it first came out, I was looking at how, because I wanted to apply. Hello, put me up, sign me up. But then they wanted all your social media stuff and all your personal information that no job application should ever ask for, because they wanted to see if you were sufficiently loyal. If you've ever said anything bad about dear leader, you're out. So, again, finally getting some attention about this Project 2025 and how dangerous it could be. Because imagine if you could, every election cycle, replace the entire federal government, not just the heads, not just the people who are deciding the direction of the organization, but the person who's answering the phones, the person who's putting the filing the paperwork. Every person in the entire organization is absolutely loyal and fearful that at any minute they're going to be thrown to the wolves. Because if there's one thing we've learned about Donald Trump and how he deals with things is that one screw up, you're under the bus. And which is why, again, what was it, 40 of his 44 cabinet members, the very best people, that's a huge number. 40 out of 44 refused to endorse him. And a lot of the things that they said are, not very flattering. So now this thing that Trump believes, or he has claimed, or somebody claims, because again, I don't believe that Trump actually wrote that, because there's no caps. Well, there is a cap where they're supposed to be. I guess the question comes back to, do you believe it? Because what Project 2025 would have done, and if they get the chance, they're going to do, is they're going to, go in, fire all the federal workers, and then replace them with loyalists to move an agenda that the conservatives have really been organizing around. And you do have to give them credit. You have to give the moneyed interest credit for having the staying power for over 50 years while the Heritage Foundation and other groups have been in existence of pushing this agenda, which we're going to suffer under for the next, couple generations. We are in a moment of transition, and not in a good way. If Biden or whoever the Democrat is loses in November, we are going to see this country dramatically shift from the country that we have been. And what's interesting to me is that the very people who say how much they love our country, how much they love them, and they're patriotic, but we got to change everything about it. Yes, I love America, but I hate everything about it. I hate the people. I hate the laws. I hate everything. We're going to fundamentally change it. And what is that going to look like? Well, they've been honest with us. You have to give them credit. They've been honest and telegraphed every pitch. We're just not smart enough to hit the ball when it comes. This will be a white male Christian-centric country. That's going to be the goal. The original intentists have already told us. Back to the original words of the Constitution, which means we're going to be counting people as 3/5 for representative purposes. No blacks voting, no women voting. They're already talking about this stuff. And it's not like I'm trying to be hyperbolic. It's not like I'm trying to create this. This is what they're telling us. The question is will we listen? They're telling us they want our legal system based basically on the 10 Commandments. As I've been saying for a couple of years, a Christian version of Sharia law. This is not me just making stuff up. This is what they're telling us. This is what they want. Workers, you're screwed. And here's the thing, even if Biden wins, I think things get really ugly for working people, because look, he's got a great person, an amazing person at the NLRB, got an incredible person at the Department of Labor. if the Supreme Court rules the National Labor Relations Act after 80 odd, how many years, 1938, how many years is that? After all these years, if they rule that unconstitutional, it will throw our system into chaos, which is where they want it. And do you think Congress? Do you think a Senate that needs to get through cloture is going to pass anything to help working people? No. Understand, when they talk about less intrusive government, let the market decide, what they're really saying is let the rich people decide. Just like 121 years ago, when we were using children in mills and mines, and we were allowing the things to happen in our society because, well, we hadn't figured out yet how to not divide ourselves. And as I said earlier, I'm taking a lot of heat. And I'm not sure, I got to be honest, I'm surprised, quite frankly, at the number of people who are, really vocal Biden supporters. I haven't heard from you before. So I'm glad you're there. And I hope that you'll be there when whatever happens so that we can pick whatever is left and move it forward and get it past the goal line. But, wow. So we're in an interesting moment. The Supreme Court's told us that there's no such thing as stare decisis. There are no decided laws. So bet your bottom dollar that we will be repealing everything that we've taken for granted, that generations have fought for. There's talk of same-sex marriage going by the wayside. Even whispers of interracial. I mean, we're really talking about repealing the 20th century. 10 years ago when I said, they want to repeal Roe versus Wade and then eventually Griswold, I had people telling me I'm crazy, could never happen, not here. Yet here we are. When I said 15 years ago, there's a fascist movement in this country that wants to take everything over and repeal the 20th century. Not here. Here we are. We're in a moment where one election, and I don't even know, as I said the other day, that we can have a free and fair election. The way things are gerrymandered, the way states have rigged things, I'm not even sure, to be honest. But what I do know that we have to get active. When this fight ends, we have to unite around saving democracy, saving the fundamentals of what we believe this country to be. A place where you have the ability to pursue life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, where you have the right to exist without fear, without reprisal. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Gonna take a quick break. When we get back, Bill Scher is going to be here from the Washington Monthly to talk about his most recent piece. You're not going to want to miss that. Back after this.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the email box has been full, and look, rightly so. This is an important discussion, an important debate on is it time for Joe to step aside, let some younger blood in, let someone pick up the mantle and move forward. And I know it's a tough transition. I know it's hard, but it's interesting. I didn't realize there were so many avid Joe Biden fans. For the last several years, I've been saying, look, this guy's transformational. This guy is moving the needle from the old neoliberalism that we suffered under to something resembling something close to what, the FDR era was, manufacturing, infrastructure, jobs, the good stuff, supporting unions. Interesting to see where we are, and here to share some thoughts on where we are. I've asked our good friend Bill Scher to come talk about this. He's got a piece over at the Washington Monthly titled, "I've defended Biden for years. Now I'm asking him to withdraw." Sounds familiar. Bill, thanks for taking time for us.
Always a pleasure, even under these circumstances.
So let's start there. Are you as surprised as I am by the number of people who are, just all in for Joe at this point? Because I don't remember them over the last couple of years.
I'm a little surprised. I probably shouldn't be. I do think he has. I mean, he's earned it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's been a very good president, but I am a little surprised that people are digging in so hard now, when I think the evidence is pretty clear that he's not. I mean, I didn't even say he should get out immediately after the debate. I wrote a piece that night saying that was a bad debate, but there are ways to overcome bad debates. We saw it with Ronald Reagan. We saw it with John Fetterman. You got to get back out there and show that was not indicative of your entire mental state. And he could have done public unscripted appearances through most of the preceding week, but he didn't do that. And what little he has done has not been error-free. It doesn't mean he has Alzheimer's. It doesn't mean that he is literally unaware of his surroundings or is not currently administering the country in a competent fashion. But there's a clear sign of some sort of decline happening,
right?
That makes one not confident he's going to be able to carry this to the finish line, let alone handle the presidency for the next 4 years. And I just think that's hard to look away from at this point.
Yeah, see, I look at it a little bit differently. He's lost public perception. And whether it's true that he's declining, or whether, look, he's just had a bad day, it doesn't really matter when the perception is all of the negative things. I think once you lose that, once you lose that, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. And this is where my mind is. Look, if Joe Biden is on the ballot in November, I've said this already. If he's in a coma, I'm going to vote for him.
Sure.
I'll vote for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump. And that's sadly where we are in this moment. And you've been someone who's called on Trump to step out. And
Absolutely.
What I find interesting is, how so many people are saying, well, why is no one calling on Donald Trump to step out? And I'm curious.
Right for the conviction. I did. He should not be the nominee. Any decent human being, after being convicted of a felony, even if you're going to appeal it.
I think you said it right there. We stop. Full stop. Any
right. decent person,
human being.
And I'm not saying that to then say out of my own mouth, well, I know he's not going to do it, he's not decent. Like that's not my job to say. My job is to say any decent person would step aside. I mean, he could step aside Donald Trump for someone who agrees with him on every issue, just is not a felon. If he cared about those issues, if he cared about the country, and he just wanted to see these policies be implemented, he would say, you know what, this J.D. Vance or this Byron Donalds or this Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they believe what I believe. They have to not be convicted felons, so give these people a shot. And his own party should be saying things like this. His own party should say, you know what, it would be better for us as a party to not be led by a convicted felon. Therefore, we ask you to step aside. That's not happening. I think Joe Biden is a decent person, is a man of character, does not want to see Donald Trump become elected again. And I would imagine with enough clear evidence, we'll come to that conclusion. It may be that he's already come to that conclusion, but has to, until you cross every T, yep. You have to keep the fight up.
No, we said this last week. He's in it until the second before he's out.
That's right. And I don't think it is enough of an argument that, I mean, you could argue, well, the polls haven't changed that much. Some more than others. There were some swing state polls that came in over the weekend where Biden was leading in Michigan and Wisconsin, though not Pennsylvania and others. I'd say, well, this is still surmountable. He is not that far behind. But he was slightly behind going into the debate.
Right.
And based on the current economic numbers, typically any incumbent would be winning right now. Yes, I know we had a period of inflation. So did Ronald Reagan. But the numbers are going in the right direction now. Jobs numbers, Wages are beating inflation, have done so for over a year. GDP is still growing. So, I mean, you can point to what negatives are out there, but on the big ones, they're going in the right direction. And every election in the past 100 years tells us an incumbent wins in those circumstances. So why was Joe Biden behind? Partly, I'd say, inflation overhang. Partly, I'd say, concern that he's not up to the job. And the inflation overhang part can be rectified with a competent, articulate campaign and nominee, which would get you back to the basic fundamentals of the race. And I think the Biden campaign felt the same way, which is why they proposed a June debate. This was their strategy, to have an early debate to prove that he still had it, that he was still sharp, to focus on the contrast, focus on the economic reality, get past of the BS narratives. And the fact that he could not meet his own standard should raise alarm bells that he's not prepared for the task going forward, as good as he has been as president up to this point.
No, look, clearly, I say all the time, he's been in my lifetime, the best president that I've seen in my lifetime. But I've questioned numerous times why a June debate. Now you've laid out the popular narrative. I've taken the position of if he did what he did, if he had the performance that he had, it still gives you a little bit of time to maybe shift course a little bit. So there's part of me that goes, the reason you had such an early debate was maybe this.
Well, what's the shift in course? I mean, the plan was
the shift in course would be
debate.
The shift in course is you're gonna get a new nominee. You may still have a little time to get
that's
there.
but
Come
if
September,
you're going to argue that Biden should stay in, I think you don't have an answer to the question, what does he do now to get ahead? If you want to say, well, it didn't change things that much, okay, but he was already behind. So, and this was the plan to get ahead. That plan didn't work. So what is plan B to get ahead with him as the nominee? Intermittent appearances that already aren't going great. And I don't want to say this in a glib or nasty way, because he's an honorable person who's done a fantastic job. But just trying to be candid here, there is no plan B of how he gets ahead at this point. And all it is a fingers crossing that none of this will matter at the end of the day. And maybe that's true. Maybe none of it matters. And Trump's own failings will become evident in just the right time. And the basic fundamentals of the economy will come forth. That's a hell of a risk to play when he's currently behind and is having a hard time articulating his own case. So, yeah, to your point, this does give you time to do a genuine course correction with a different nominee. And quite frankly, a fantastic time for that would be next week in the middle of the Republican convention, which may well be where they're heading.
No, and then that's what what I'm hearing is the reality. That it's going to happen. It's going to happen quickly, and it's going to be the one thing that may suck the oxygen out of the room for Trump for a first time that he loses the news cycle.
Yeah, I mean that's the upside here. Now, obviously, the question that becomes, well, who's it going to be? And I think the easiest, most straightforward move is for Biden to resign next week, elevate Kamala Harris to be president, again, in the midst of the Republican convention. I don't know if you saw Kamala's appearance at the Essence Fest yesterday. And look, that was a friendly crowd, softball questions. I'm not saying it would answer everyone's concerns about her ability to go the distance. But I do think you see someone who is fully prepared for the moment. I mean, she is as knowledgeable about domestic and global affairs, knowledgeable about the current administration's policies, knowledgeable about the kinds of attacks you are going to get and how you respond to them, than anyone else is going to be available. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of governors and senators that have potential, but it's one thing to be good on paper. It's another thing to actually be in the crucible literally immediately, like with no time to get your sea legs, and hit all your marks perfectly. That's a lot to ask of anybody. And I think it'd be the other thing interesting about if Kamala was literally president. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of things. One is I think she would inherit the campaign apparatus and war chest immediately. I think other folks have more of a legal issue with accessing that money. And second, she could run a quasi rose garden campaign. Hey guys, I gotta be president right now. I gotta be president, do president things. I'll give remarks at the Rose Garden. I'll be updating you on developments. I'll do the rallies on the weekend. In the meantime, you're gonna watch me be president. And that would I think relieve some of the pressure of having to do two things at the same time. Elevate her stature, give her those trappings, and get people comfortable with the notion of a woman of color being president. So it doesn't mean it's a lock. You can't say anybody's a lock because you can't poll test it before you're the nominee and you actually get the incoming. I mean, that's the true test of whether anyone's poll numbers today will hold up tomorrow, and you'll only be able to test it on one person who gets the nomination. But that to me strikes me, and the third thing on top of all that is that you would avoid a messy convention scenario. I mean, you could leave it open. You could say, hey, if you want to run against the incumbent president, have at it. But chances are it would be her if she was literally the president.
So, I mean, on the open convention, because I've had people make all these arguments that he should resign and let Kamala step in and then name a VP. And I hear Pete Buttigieg's name being thrown into that. I've heard that, he should finish out his term, hand over the apparatus. And then I've heard the open convention, with the open convention probably being the messiest. But I've heard people say that's the best for democracy. You got a thought on that?
I mean, I don't think they should ban it. If someone on my, my plan B, Kamala is president. If someone wants to say, you know what, that's nice, you're the president right now, but you still have to earn it. I think I have more to offer. I throw my hat in the ring. I'll make my case to the delegates at the convention. Fine, let them do that. You don't have to twist people's arms. My guess is that not many people will do it because it's a lot these are all people that have, I think, long-term potential in the party and could be president someday in 4 to 8 years. And to say, I am asserting that I am more qualified than the woman of color who was vice president for the last 3.5 years and is president today, that's a tough argument to make. So a lot of people might be hesitant to make it. But if someone does, give it a whirl, see how it goes, and let the delegates vote. I mean, the party is not a direct democracy operation. It is people electing delegates who go to a convention. The delegates vote for the nominee. That's literally how it works. Give the delegates a chance to vote for somebody else if they want to. My guess is they would vote for Kamala in that circumstance, and everyone I think would be pretty unified from that point forward because they realize what the alternative is.
So last line of questioning I've got for you, because it seems right now, at least the corporate-controlled mainstream media keeps feeding into this frenzy of how divided the Democrats are. Do you think that there's a way to unify this? Would it be what your idea is? Do you see a way of bringing back the angry? Because look, I don't know about you, but my email box is full of people calling me anything but a decent human being right now for taking this position. And look, this is what democracy looks like, and I fully take that. But is there a way to bring those folks back together and unify, you think?
Look, I think Biden unifies the party because Biden is reflective, as best as any one person can be, of the issues that bind the Democratic Party. No one can be. I mean, it's a diverse party. It's a Big Tent party. No one's going to be literal. The literal consensus is never possible. But Biden is pretty much in that median, as I think Kamala is, and you could argue Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom and others would be too. But if Biden is choosing to resign and saying publicly, there are health reasons why I need to do this. It was hard for me to get to this place. I think you can understand how emotionally difficult coming to terms with that would be for anybody. But I have to be candid with myself and candid with you. And I think it is time to let the person who I thought was the most qualified person when I chose her in the first place take the reins. I don't think there'd be that much lingering bitterness at that point.
Right.
What might cause more division if there's a sense that people were putting their thumb on the scales to deny who many would see as the next most qualified person being Kamala, because it would bring in all these questions of why you're not letting a woman or a person of color get it when they are the most qualified. It's not just a strict identity politics argument. It's that you can't easily argue she's not the most qualified. And you can't easily argue that she's a sure loser, because the poll that's out there doesn't say that. The CNN poll has her doing a little bit better than Joe Biden. The Data for Progress poll has them all doing about the same, with Buttigieg, Whitmer, Newsom, you name it. So the argument that, I mean, if she was like 10 points behind everybody else, then you got an argument. But that's not what the data has been showing us right now.
But isn't this what the plan 4 years ago really kind of was? That Joe would be a one-term president, that his was going to be that transitional, transformational administration to move us in the right direction, unify, tap down some of the crazy, give us that steady hand, and then pass it on to someone who would take that mantle and move forward. 4 years ago, that's what I thought the plan was, and it still can be, I think, and should be.
Well, I think a lot of people assume that. Biden never said it. He did say his plan, I want to be a transition, to the next generation. So that was an implication, but It wasn't literally stated. I think a lot of people thought he's going to be 82. That's ridiculous. Who's going to run at 82? But I also understood that he had a successful record. Incumbents have a strong advantage in elections. Again, there is no incumbent in modern American history with the current economic record that he has who has lost. And look, you can look at, and I just put this on X yesterday. He did an interview. He did an hour-long, unscripted interview with Howard Stern in the last week of April, 10 weeks ago. His voice is stronger than today. His answers are coherent and on point. This is not a 15 minutes, it's a full hour. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. He did the White House Correspondents' Dinner after that, which I granted was probably a teleprompter thing, but still, he sounded and looked better than he does today. I don't think it was the case that he was totally falling apart this whole time and they were hiding it from us. It does. I mean, I'm not the doctor. I'm not saying I'm the last word on the subject, but from what I can see, it would appear something happened fairly recently. That could not, I mean, if you want to say there's a higher risk of that because of his age, fine. But, some people have neurological issues at a younger age. Some people have other physical issues at a younger age. Warren Harding died of a heart attack at a younger age. You never know these things for an absolute fact. So I can understand Joe Biden saying to himself last fall or last winter, I'm in good shape. I got a good record. The polls are still competitive. I can do this. That's not an unreasonable thing for him to have concluded. But I think something happened recently that changes the equation.
Well, I'm sure we're going to find out fairly soon. But, Bill, as always, I appreciate the time. Great work over at the Washington Monthly. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
Our good friend Bill Scher. I want to hear your thoughts. Angry emails to the top. As always, we'll take a quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1966. That was the day that the International Association of Machinists went out on strike. The day before, the Machinist newsletter, published out of Washington, D.C., declared strike set on 5 airlines. During the first half of the 1960s, the airline industry had invested in new equipment and jet technology. Now those investments were paying off in huge profits, and the workers wanted their share of the booming industry. In the article, IAM President Roy Scheimiller explained, quote, "These corporations netted more than $200 million last year. They are enjoying the greatest prosperity in their history. There is no question of her ability to pay. The issue is whether the employees employees deserve to share in the prosperity of their industry and how much. He went on to say, our members on these airlines are not satisfied with the offers made in negotiations so far. Under the American system and under American labor law, they have a right to strike. Only under communism and fascism are human beings forced to work against their will. At 6 a.m., the machinists were called to strike against United, TWA, Eastern, Northwest, and National. The striking workers picketed at 230 airports throughout the United States. It's estimated that 60% of all flights were impacted by the strike. The work action wore on for 3 weeks. Then the White House got involved. President Lyndon B. Johnson helped broker an offer of a 4.5% annual raise for the workers for each of the 3 years. But the union members voted it down. The vote was nearly 3-1 against taking the offer. Finally, the strike was settled after 43 days. The machinist members had won a 6% raise.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So Marco Rubio was on the Sunday shows, and this is one of those things that kind of comical if you think about it. He was on the Sunday shows doing the, Donald Trump's not gonna prosecute his political appointees if he wins. Donald Trump would never do that. Never mind the fact that Trump has said he's going to do that. Don't believe what he says. Or am I supposed to believe what he says? Either way, Rubio's out there doing the spin control. Just like Trump said that he didn't know anything about Project 2025. So not going to prosecute the political appointees because according to Rubio, he's going to be too busy undoing all the damage of this disastrous presidency, getting us out of the pandemic, doing a whole bunch of investments in infrastructure, doing a whole bunch of investments in reshoring manufacturing, strengthening work for people, getting people to be able to join and form unions, doing some good stuff. But that's 20th century thinking. But so do you buy it? And the fact that Rubio is out there saying this means that there are a lot of people who are going, but Trump says is what he says. Don't believe your lying ears. Marco is here to tell you he'll just be too busy. And look, we've seen that President Thinskin would most certainly want to go after the people who disagreed with him. I do find it funny, though, that Rubio has come out and said this. And finally, for the day, the 4th of July, a patriotic holiday, the idea of celebrating our independence and doing all that stuff, reading the Declaration of Independence, which I try to do every 4th of July. Evidently, a South Carolina man thought, no, I'm going to dress up like Uncle Sam. I'm going to wear the flag costume, big flag wannabe hats, and then I'm going to literally blow my own head off. Evidently put one of the big firework things on top of his head. Showboating, they said. Then, it exploded. And I guess this is one of those things where you would hope a 41-year-old father would know better. You would hope a 41-year-old would be a better example. But evidently, not. Put the firework up there and basically blew his head off. And what's interesting to me is, I'm using this story kind of as a metaphor for the American MAGA right. When you look at some of the crazy stuff that they do in full patriotic gear, claiming to be patriotic, and yet what I fear is going to come out of all of it. The fact that Rubio's out there saying, oh, he's not going to go after his political enemies. No, he'll be busy. Means that that's exactly what they're talking about. The fact that he's out there saying that, well, we would never do that. And Project 2025 is all about doing just that. And the fact that you've got Trump distancing himself from the comments of the Heritage Foundation's president, Kevin Roberts, that, we're the second revolution, and if it'll be bloodless if the left lets it. which, as I said the other day, was him saying, look, if you go along quietly, we won't have to kill you. This should be one of those wake up calls. To one, not put fireworks on your head while dressed up as Uncle Sam. But two, understand that we're in a moment where, in the name of patriotism, a lot of even my friends that I know are doing some things that are long-term not going to be in their best interest. And interestingly enough, doing a lot of it in the name of faith and religion. And what's frightening about that is once you get people to believe that it's about their God and that Donald Trump is part of this divine kind of whatever, they will do anything, including shedding blood. What we're hearing from the MAGA right is all about creating that kind of anger and that danger. So for me, listen to what they say. Listen to their words. Listen to their denials, most certainly, because it's one of those things, as my mother always said, if someone's pointing their finger at you, they got three pointing back. Also, if they're talking about it, if they're accusing you of doing it, chances are they've already done it. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind. I want to hear it. Angry responses to the top. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, you'll find ours. And as always, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.